this past summer. And then we're going to tag team together on what God has to say this morning. I'm going to share the word, but she's going to share a little bit about her trip to orphanages in China this summer.
Alright, well, I've already been home 3 months, and I promised I wasn't putting off getting up here speaking, but today is a Sunday known as Orphan Sunday, I guess in the adoption community. And it's basically a Sunday dedicated to making people more aware of orphans and just their situations and what's going on in the world with them. And so I asked Sheldon, he asked when I wanted to talk, and I asked if I could please have November 8th, because that's what the Sunday was all about, and that's what I was doing on my trip, so I figured it'd work out well. But I think the biggest thing I learned on my trip was, as silly as it sounds, just how real orphans are. Like, I knew about them before, I have friends that were adopted, different things like that, but when you're there, when you're in their situation, when you go down and meet them at their level, it becomes a whole new thing to you. Like, your eyes are just opened in a whole new way. And we had daily team devotions with my team, and we focused on just how God really has called us to care for orphans. And I guess I think I overlooked that. I overlooked it in the Bible, even though it's in there numerous times. And I just kind of, thought of doing. And when I was doing that, I knew what I was doing it to God. And that He loved what we were doing, and that we were doing it for Him. And that was an amazing thing to be where God wanted you to be and know that you were doing something that made Him happy. And those kids were they're like the happiest kids I've ever been around. Even though they had the worst lives ever, the kids we were with, they weren't just orphans, they were all special needs orphans. Not only did they have no families, but they're dealing with disorders, going through their lives with different heart problems or cleft palates or just different things that would make their life 10 times harder than it already was. Yet they could still be happy, they could still, when we'd walk into the room, they'd run up to us with open arms, with the biggest smile ever on their face. And it made you kind of forget, how serious their situation was. But I remember one day, it was about probably 5 days into the trip. And up until that point, you're just kind of you kind of just forgot that they were orphans and that they just were living a heartbreaking life. And there's one little boy. I went in this room, there's one little boy that was kind of sitting off by himself. And I went over to him and kind of picked him up and was playing with him. And he started crying. And I was like, oh no, what do I do? And he was just kind of trying to comfort him, and he was crying. And it was the most heartbreaking cry I've ever heard in my life, even though it was just a normal cry. But it was, when he was crying, it was almost like I was feeling his life. I was feeling the feelings that he deals with every day. And I just started crying, and I was like looking at my friend that was in the room with me, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. It was like absolutely broke my heart, because up until that point they were just happy, they wanted to see us, but I realized that they were orphans, and they're living basically the worst lives ever, and something needs to be done about that. And it just inspired me and changed my life. And coming home was probably the worst thing I ever went through. I was really excited to get home. I was like, yes, I can see my family, get back to life, whatever. But as soon as I got home, I was like, I don't want to be here. I can't enjoy anything when I know that they're still there. And I come back to my comfortable little life. I come back to my awesome family and 2 parents that love me, and where I basically have everything that I need. And they're still there with nothing. And you just leave them, and I felt like there's nothing I could do, and I had to do something. But one thing that I am doing, one of the little boys, it's actually the little boy that I told you about, the little boy that broke my heart and just showed me how serious their situation is. One of the orphanages we were at lets you sponsor the kid, and so I came home and immediately found out about that, and I'm now sponsoring them monthly. And when you sponsor them, it lets you name them, give them an American name. So his name's Micah, and it's just really cool to know that I can still help at least one of them. Now that I'm home, and I'm just searching out different ways that I can do stuff. And our team leader quoted a song to us during one of our devotions, and that song sticks with me just constantly. It's a song by a girl. She's actually one of the singers for Hillsong United, which is one of the worship bands that we do a lot of their songs. But she went over to Rwanda on a missions trip and met an orphan over there that just changed her life, and she promised this girl that she was going to write a song for her, and that she'd tell the world her story and what she was dealing with. And it's based on James chapter 2, verse 26, I think, where it's talking about faith without deeds is dead. We can't believe things and not do anything because our beliefs, or that's worthless, basically. And one of the lines in the chorus is, now that I have seen, I am responsible. And all the words to the song are good, but that line specifically just struck me, and it was like, I've seen this, now it's on my shoulders, I have to do something. And at first I was like, that's too much, that's too big of a burden, but it's there, and it's with us, and it's true, and I think that's what God's called us to do. And I don't believe that I don't think you have to fly 8,000 miles over to China to know that orphans exist. You don't have to go there to know that they're dealing with that. Anyone can be responsible, and I think if you're aware of things, then you can't be ignorant and be like, oh, that doesn't exist, I'll let someone else take care of it. And I guess that's what I'm dealing with right now. I don't really know where to go from here, but I know that something has to be done, and I want to do all I can. And it doesn't just apply to orphans, it can apply to anyone in need. There's broken people everywhere, and I've just kind of been praying that God would open up my eyes to them, and that I would just be more aware of everything going on around me, because there's brokenness everywhere, and if we don't do something about it, who's going to? And I have a video that I'm going to show. And the lyrics to the song, that's just what it's about. It's this guy just asking God, he's saying, give me your eyes and give me your heart, God. I want to see people like you see them. And that was my prayer before the trip, and it's still my prayer now, and I think it's just important to ask God for that and to try view people through his eyes. And also in the video, just to explain something, at the end there's pictures of 3 little babies, and I've been home 3 months, and in 3 months 3 of the kids I was with have passed away. And they all have special needs, obviously, but these ones is just a little more serious. But a lot of it, China doesn't have the medical help, they don't have the medical help to give these kids. These 3 of the orphanages I went to were run by Christians, and one of them was a state orphanage. And the ones run by Christians are basically just operating by themselves. They're, going off of donations and different things, so they're doing the best they can for these kids, but for those, it wasn't good enough. And I can't even handle the thought that they died without love. They died without knowing what it was like to have a family. But there in the last thing in the video, 2 of them had heart problems, and one of them was born premature. But they were all kids we were with, they're kids we held and tried to do our best to love them, and then we had to leave them, and now they're gone. So that's been hard, but it's also a wake-up call, like something has to happen. And so yeah, you'll see them on the video, and the little boy that I'm sponsoring now, he's kind of towards the beginning, and he's holding a green ball, so you can look out for him also. And I just want to thank you guys as a church. You guys have supported me, whether financially or through prayer, or whatever you guys done for me. It's been so encouraging, and I'm so happy that I'm a part of such an awesome church. And I can't thank you guys enough.